All right, guys, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. If you're someone who is seeking uncommon results, this podcast is for you. Success, happiness, and wisdom. What do these words mean to you? I think we can all agree that we'll probably all have slightly different definitions of each. In these podcasts, I get to dive deeply into conversations with some amazing innovators, influencers, and trendsetters that have had different versions of how they define the terms, yet have come out on the other side with amazing, uncommon results. At some point in their lives, they have decided to unshackle themselves from the norm and go beyond all boundaries.
Well, again, thank you everybody for joining the show. Again, this is Beyond All Boundaries. I'm John Dwyer, and hey, I got a great guest today. A guy that brings a smile to my face every time I call him up and have a conversation with him. A good buddy of mine. I got to know Jeff Garner. Man, it's only been about a year, Jeff. But I tell you what, this guy is someone who's had an impact in my life, and just someone who I just have the utmost respect for, and I just really enjoy talking to Jeff and just his life experiences. And so, man, I just really appreciate being on the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it, buddy.
You're also a mellow professional right now, bud.
What?
You're always a mellow professional right now. Look at you. As soon as we hit record, right? No. So
boom. I turn it off.
Yeah. So no, I mean, Jeff's in St. Louis, and we're actually in a mastermind study group together. And I'm just really excited about having Jeff on just to share some insight. As everybody knows that listens to the show, you know, it's not just about what we're doing from a business perspective or our successes. It's really what we've learned and the things that we've challenged ourselves with, and how do we, come out on the other side of just, certain things, and just to continue to grind and make things happen. So, Jeff, I'm really excited to share your story and just have you talk and share your wisdom, your expertise, and just some of the things that you've learned over the years throughout building your business. So why don't you just start out by giving a little background about, what you're doing, where you're at, and just share with the audience just a little bit about your background and what you have going on.
Well, I started in the business. It's really the only job I've ever had. Right. I've been saying I'm unemployable since that was a cool phrase to say in the entrepreneur world. Because the truth is I had several jobs, and I just was not the type to clock in. I wasn't great with authority. I always wanted to work on my own schedule. So I got my real estate license when I was 23.
So your business, so just for the viewers, you're in the real estate space, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've had my real estate license as an agent since 1997. And in 2000, I bought my first rehab. So fast forward to today, I own Starting Point Real Estate here in St. Louis, and we buy, sell, and rent. That's basically what we focus on, is buying either distressed property at a discount, or pretty homes close to retail. We can pay pretty close to retail nowadays. And I either renovate and resell, or I hold and do rent homes with tenant buyers.
No, you have a pretty good construction background though, correct? You want to talk a little bit about your upgrade? So you mentioned, right, like you weren't ready to collect, check in, punch the time clock, and just weren't really in the being a job perspective. So was your dad an entrepreneur, or how did you get in the business?
My dad was a real estate broker. Okay, so we're very blue collar family, right? My father had 5 brothers and sisters, and they were all married by 17, 18 years old, right out of high school. They're all still married to their wives today in their 70s. All their kids are still married to their wives, and they got married right out of high school. It's a very Southern background. We're in the Midwest now, but they came Southern, and that was what you did. You got a job, you worked your butt off your whole life, built up a pension. Well, my dad's like me, and he just didn't fit that mold. Drove an 18-wheeler for years. Then he decided to get his real estate license, and with 3 years, he was running one of the highest volume offices in St. Louis. He was the broker of it and just killed it. So he was an instant success, kind of broke the mold. And so I grew up around, I remember being 5 years old, sitting in the passenger seat of my dad's baby blue Cadillac Eldorado. And he would leave me in it while he went and showed property, you know, and it'd always be like, I'll be right back, son. I got to go show this house. And I'd do an hour later. Jesus Christ. You know, I remember a couple of times like he had the gigantic phone, right? And I'm like trying to figure out how to make this thing work because I was so in the car so long. But so my whole life's been around real estate. So I even fought that, you know. My dad wanted me to get in the real estate business at 18 years old, and I didn't. Honestly, I liked partying a little more. And I knew if I went to work for dad, I would put a damper on that. So I held out till I was 23 and got my real estate license. I was a success right out of the gate too. It just fit me, you know, it just dealing with people and making my own schedule and really worked well for me. So I had success instantly and started, you know, that's where my career started, you know.
So talk about, you know, what do you think it was? You know, obviously your dad was successful, but from the conversations that you had, it's not like your dad handed you like any sort of, you know,
No.
you had to work for what you had, right? So what was it? What was it to have you, you know, feel like you were an instant success? Like what characteristic or what trait would you look back and, you know, as audiences and listeners are listening to this, you know, in the real estate space, there's so many different caveats to this, right? But
yeah,
what was it for Jeff Garner that allowed you to, you know, to be successful?
Well, okay, so it was my ability to, it was my people skills that I didn't really know were skills at the time. It had nothing to do with real estate. It had nothing to do with education. Hell, there's probably a better way to intro into my real background pre 23 years old, but I'll dive in a little. Getting a real estate license was really the only career path if you wanted a career for a high school dropout, which is what I am, right? Last grade I completed was ninth. So wild kid, drinking, got into drugs, started throwing my life away as fast as I possibly could. Got my life together in 22, 23, and it was like, what am I going to do? I have no education. I've been waiting tables, bartending or roofing or framing or whatever. And so, okay, I'll go work for dad. Now, you know, I had an education in real estate my whole life. I just didn't know it by listening to him and other family members talking on the phone and sitting in the car while they went on appointments and stuff. And so and then waiting tables and bartending trained me on how to make people happy, because you're not cooking the food when you're waiting tables, whether it comes out perfect or it comes out bad. It's not, you didn't cook it, but you still have to make them like you to get a tip at the end of it, one way or the other. So that's what real estate really is from an agent's perspective. What I was taught right out of the gate was, it isn't that you don't got to get them to like the house. They just have to like you, because if they buy any house, you get a commission on it. It isn't like you own these houses, and if they don't buy yours, you're not a car lot. So you got to get people to like you, and then they'll want to buy whatever they buy from you. So that's what I was good at. You know, I had to earn my way. My dad gave me no better commission split than anyone else. You know, as a matter of fact, at the end of the day, I ended up quitting and starting my own business 8 years in, because I realized there was really no future for me there. I was a salesman. I wasn't taking anything over. It was my dad's baby. And there wasn't really a lot left to it toward the end, just because of other life circumstances of his. But
so 8 years. So was it about 8 years ago or 8 years into your business then?
8 years into my business.
8 years into your business, and then you changed your model to kind of what you're doing today, right? It's not just So why don't you show?
Yeah. So what I found was that I really enjoyed working with investors, because I became not only good with people, but what I got really good at was finding a deal, spotting a house that was underlisted, spotting a house that with a couple tweaks here and a couple tweaks there, it could be converted. You could add value and make money. And so I really developed a niche with all the investors in town. And it got to the point to where I would call investors up and I'd give them an email of all the properties that I found. And I'd tell them, like, you have you got to pay this much on this house, this much on this house, and this much on this house, and you'll buy them. We'll beat all our competition with these numbers, and this is what you'll get when you sell it. And so I turned it into kind of a residual paycheck type of business versus what your traditional real estate agent does, because I had every investor in town buying from me. I just got really good at that. Then one day I was sitting at a closing table and we all closed at the same table. And I just got my little $1,500, $2,000 check for selling this little house. And he got a $20,000 check because he flipped it to someone and assigned it. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong side of the table here. I'm doing something wrong. And from that point forward, I started moving my way more and more toward being an investor. And then 2008 hit, which wiped out all those investors. And I found myself starting from scratch. I thought, what better time to go?
So talk about that. Were you in a position in 2008? And I know from some things that the last couple of years, you've done a really masterful job of cleaning up your business and getting yourself in a position, right? You've been doing some really hard work and some really great things. So what did you learn in 2008, I guess, as an entrepreneur investor? What did you learn? And maybe you could share with the listeners and our listeners of things that maybe take in consideration if we have another 2008.
Yeah, and we will. It'll just look a little different. It might not be it might not be a catastrophic bubble, but we'll have several bubbles in our generation still that could potentially hurt us or take us down. Well, what I learned is I was always my paycheck, right? It was always active income, right? It was flips. I didn't want to own rentals. I didn't want to do anything long-term. Because I just wanted to flip houses and make big checks. And the problem is when you're living that lifestyle and you can be making good money, which feels like you're rich and it's going to last forever. And that is going to happen forever. If you're not building if you don't have assets or you're not building any kind of wealth behind it, I don't care if you're making $500,000 a year. That goes away overnight. That doesn't last long, especially if you have debt. It ate me. I really 2008 kicked my butt too, because I made, I was flipping houses. I had a condo in Florida on the beach. I went to the mountains 4 times a year to ski. I thought I was on my way. And then 2008 happened. I didn't have a dollar coming in, and every dollar I had out in real estate, I never saw again. And I realized at that point is that I needed to be building assets. Wealth is built, over time. It's by holding, not flipping. Active income, maybe your lifestyle can be created by, I don't know what else to call it. I call it active income versus long-term, versus passive. But when that 08 came, it really taught me that lesson, that I was doing it wrong. And that when things were high and at a peak, I should have been selling, not buying. Mm-hmm. Right. So phase 2 was to redo that. And so, 08 hit, but really it was 09 and 010 when I was starting to feel it here in the Midwest, where it was really kicking my butt. So from 2011, almost 2012 to 2015, I bought 110 properties and didn't sell any of them.
Wow.
Right.
How many properties?
110.
Wow.
I was not going to let that happen again. I was going to build. I know real estate. I know nothing else but real estate, right? You heard my education background, right? So I know real estate. If I learned anything else too, it's to stay in your wheelhouse, right? Another reason why in 08 it hurt me so bad is because I'm used to doing middle class housing, which you can cash flow, rent anytime you want, no matter what's going on in the market. People need places to live. Well, I had a couple buddies and a family member making $100,000 pops in Florida on these pre-construction deals. And so I moved all my money over to Florida because I was sick of making these $20,000 and $30,000 checks, and I wanted the 100 and 150s, which is not my wheelhouse. I had to totally trust other people. And when the market went down, I left all my money behind because it all disappeared.
Wow.
So if I learned anything else, it would stay in my wheelhouse. That's why real estate's my thing. So if I want passive income, it's going to be through real estate. If I
And
want,
you know, when people talk about passive, it doesn't mean that you're not working and having to do things, right? I think that's kind of a, you know, at least in my space, as you know, Jeff, I mean, in the financial space, right? Like I hear everybody talking about passive income, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you just can sit back and not do anything. It requires work, it requires effort. But to your part, right? To your part, it's all about building assets that can generate that income to allow you to have, when we do have dips and corrections in the marketplace, right? To where you have access and liquidity, use and control of your money is really, really important. You know?
absolutely.
And those,
Yeah, you're right. People argue the passive statement. So residual income, passive income, something that's working while you're sleeping,
right.
you know, and gaining in value and income. So I wanted that's one thing I learned is I needed both. And you know what? So for 3 years, I didn't make barely anything, man. I just took enough out of the business to pay my bills. I lived a very modest lifestyle. You know, but I built up, I think it was $7.5 million rental portfolio, you know, or was it 13 and I owed 7 on it? I don't remember, but it was big. I brought $100,000 a month, right? Yeah. Gross. And then as the market changed, okay, I got that set. Now I started getting into wholesale, right? Because clearly I can find the deals, right? And so I started wholesaling. And I did that for quite a few years until about a year ago, and I moved out of that. It's just now another thing I learned is like the market. You have to watch you have to be doing the best job you can on predicting what's coming and know where you're at now. Because I see these people getting in the real estate business. They're like, I want to be a landlord, or I'm going to be a wholesaler, or I'm going to be a rehabber. And I do a little education myself in some boot camps and stuff. And I'll tell everybody right in the beginning, okay, we're wiping that out of our brains. We're none of those things. We're real estate acquisition experts, right? Because if you can buy right, every exit strategy will work for you. Don't lock yourself into one thing, because right now is not a great buy and hold market.
No, I hear, you know, I talk a lot of, you know, when I'm doing a lot of these podcasts, and especially in the real estate world, you know, and just happens that because of the masterminds I'm in, it's in that real estate space in regards to the financial space, which is a very great, you know, correlation to everything, right? But
yeah,
I hear that, you know, what I hear is that there's just the inventory is really difficult right now. Is that an accurate? I mean, I just hear people talking about we're looking for inventory.
And I've had to change my model to fit that, you know, because that's what I'm saying. If you get yourself locked into being one thing, there's no such thing. You're a real estate guy or you're not. And if you're a real estate guy, you're going, like, if you're a stock market guy, you're not only I only buy. No, because the market's you're gonna be the high, and you're gonna need to sell sometimes and predict what's coming in the future. You might short, you might do all kinds of things. You need to learn. You need to know your product and your market so you can shift and change and make money off all markets, right? If I would have done that back then, I would be retired already. I wouldn't have lost all that money. And
I always talk about the ability to adapt to change, right? And to where it's great that we can be laser focused and pick your lane and own it, but you also have to kind of have your blinders off, so to speak, to sit back and evaluate and look at, you know, what other areas am I maybe at what I call your blind spots, right? Where am I missing the boat? Now, before we started the program, you were talking a little bit about your realtor program. You want to talk more about that and kind of things that you have going on right now?
So I basically, it kind of goes to what you said. Inventory is low. You can put a house on the market that should sell for 300. It's really only worth 300. It might sell for 350. It might sell for 320. People are overpaying because interest rates are so low, and there's literally nothing to buy. And if there's 50 buyers for every one house. So what I've done is I started just reaching out to my realtor network and letting them know, like, hey, I'll pay almost retail. I'll pay 95% of retail, which most investors would be like, why the hell would you do that? Or how can you do that? And the reason I can is because I have resources. You know, I have I have a large um, um, guidance line with my bank, and I have private financing to get it started. So I'm doing a rent to own program. That's what I'm kind of specializing in right now. So I am holding in this market. It's not a great hold market, but I am because of what I'm doing. So the way I'm working with realtors right now is I'm basically paying up to 95% of loan to value. So if something's listed, just for easy math, let's say it's $1 million, I can pay 950.
Now, when you said that, most people are thinking that that's a bad idea. You want to explain that a little bit?
Well, because if the market goes down and the house, we lose 10%, 15%, then that $1 million house is worth 8. Right. And so people would say, why would you pay 900 for it or 950 for it? Okay. Well, truthfully, I need to be around 90%. But most of those $1 million houses that I might buy, which is just a rough number, most of the houses I buy are between 100 and 500. Okay. So let's say I'm buying $1 million house, I pay, 90, 920, 930, 940 for it. Which sounds like a discount, but maybe that house needs a couple things put in it. It's like just right on the cusp of being a nice retail home, but needs some updating. So I'll buy that. Most of the time, those are dated. The ones I'm buying are dated. They're not distressed, they're dated. I'll buy it, I'll put a few bucks in it, try to get that value up to $1,050,000, $1,001,000. So now I'm at $1,001,000, let's say. I bought it for $950,000. I refinance it at 80% loan to value. So 80% loan to value on that is, I don't know, what's 80% loan to value of
1,800,000.
How much?
About 800,000.
Around 800,000. So now all of a sudden I have like 10, 11, 12% equity in it because I bought it for like 950. It's got a value of 1.1, right? So I just created a little gap there, right? And then I'm doing rent owns with those buyers out there. Good buyers can't find houses, right? And there's also buyers that have a lot of cash because they're good at saving their money, but they had a divorce, so they had something in their life, some little blip that screwed them up and made it to where they can't buy right now, but they have money. So then what I'm doing is I'm doing it. I'm not selling it traditionally. I'm doing a lease with option to buy. Every state has a different strategy you would need to use for this, but for me, I do lease with options to buy.
Is that kind of like a contract for deed then, Jeff? Is that what you're doing? More of a contract?
Very similar, but I keep the rights to the interest, the depreciation. I still get all the write-offs on the property.
Okay.
Because it's an option to buy, give them 3 years. So what I'll do is I'll go sell it to them for 1.1. I'm in it for 950. Maybe I threw 20 in it. I'm in it for 970. I sell it to them for 1.1. I owe 820, 830 on it, right? Mm-hmm. And then I get 10% down. So now I'm getting 110% down, or I'm getting $110,000 down. Okay. So that makes my, whatever I said I'm in it, let's just say 970. It makes it 860. So the goal is I can't be in it for more than 860 because I need to break out of this even when I get my tenant buyer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, so now I have a house that's valued at 1.1, legit, appraisal, everything, that I owe 860 on. So I bought this house at 8. So now I have a cost basis in this house at 86%, 85, or no, I'm sorry, like 78, 79, 80%, which is where I like to be. I like a 20 to 25% loan to value because the market's never dipped in my area under like 15 or 16% in the history of the world.
Now, after 3 years, if the client doesn't buy it from you, then you just renegotiate the lease.
Do it again. I go get another 110,000 and sell it again for 1.1. And I keep getting deeper in it on my cost. If they buy it, good for them. I made $100,000, right? Plus, I'm making, in that price point, I'm making about $1,000 a month in cash flow because I'm getting interest rate for 4 and I'm charging them 6.5, right? For the ability. But now, if they buy, I'm also giving them 10% of their rent payment back, right? Like a mortgage. So that's the benefit to doing it. Is it's just like buying the house. If you if you, fulfill the contract, if you, perform.
Now, is that a majority of what you're doing right now? Because I also know that you have other portfolio like long-term holdings as well, right? I mean,
yeah. So I have my rental portfolios that I've had for years, and then I also add some to it when I find the right deal. If it doesn't fit this model, I add it just to my rental portfolio. But I like this model because historically, I think it's 10% actually buy. Now, I'd like to see that at about 20 or 25% because I really want this to be something that helps people.
right.
And so I'm going to try to incentivize them other ways, stay on top of them, help them with credit repair programs, things like that. But life happens. Some of them decide they want to move. Some of them decide they want to buy a different house. Some of them, I had one that happened earlier last year. They bought it for me, gave me 40 grand on a $410,000 house. And a year later, it turns out that the fiance husband was a con man.
Wow.
That kind of conned his that didn't have any money and conned the fiance and got all her money. I don't know what their deal was, but it was crazy. And within a year, he moved out, and I did it again and got another 40 grand from someone else. So they say so I'm hoping to get about 20% to actually close. That would be a really high percentage. So that means that, let's just say for easy numbers, I have 10 of them, 10 properties, all different price ranges. And let's say it's a $5 million portfolio. Once I hit that 3-year mark, 20% of them are going to fall off every year, right? So, but let's assume I'm always adding 20% back to the inventory, okay? Mm-hmm. So on my 3rd year, I'm going to have 3 of them close and make 50 to 100 a piece, and 7 more I have to re-up with other people. So if it's 10% on $500,000 every 3, once I hit that 3-year mark, it'll happen every year, a certain percentage of it. So if I can keep, so this is work with the number 10, that first 3rd-year mark. If it's a $5 million portfolio, long story short, let's just say I make 10% profit on the ones I sell, and I re-up 10% on the rest, get another 10% down. It's an option fee that's non-refundable. So I'm looking at bringing in 500 grand in 3 years. And then all the other ones I add will start coming up all the other years. So I could potentially be bringing in 20, 30,000 a month in passive income off the payments, or whatever the number is.
Right.
I really should have thought this through and wrote numbers down so I could be exact.
Well, you didn't know I was going to go here, though. So that's cool.
I didn't know you were going to go here. So whatever my passive income will be, or my residual income, is what it'll be. And then if I re-up this every, 80% of them re-up every year, then there's at least a couple $100,000 in option fees and a potential another 100, 200 grand a year in passive income. So now John might say, okay, Jeff, well, what do you do if you have another recession? Hey, I hate to do your job for you, but
you're making it easy, brother. Thanks. You want a co-host? You want to be a double? Is that what? You see why I love this guy?
We'd make a good tag team. This would be a good podcast. And I'll be like, well, you're right. If that's the case, then I'm now into these for 20 to 25% equity. Market is not, I think, 08 was the worst crash since the Depression, and it went down like 18 to 20%. In my area, I'm in the Midwest, we're a little safer. So, some of the worst drops around here were 14, 15, 16%. So I should be pretty recession proof, right? And I'm in control of my payments, my interest, because if they have to re-up, then if people are, not performing on their contracts and I sell them to other people, then I can adjust the payment accordingly. And if I have to sell them for less than what I did the first time, then, oh, well, I got the equity. So that's my grand master plan right now for where we're
everybody needs a roof over their head, right? So you can always adjust and change. And
absolutely,
the thing is that you're leveraging, here's the thing too, that I think a lot of people, and we just had this conversation with one of our friends, but about equity and leverage and debt, right? Like there's a difference between having debt and being in debt.
Yeah.
And I truly believe and know to be true that, if you tell the bank, listen, you have 80% mortgaged, they're going to work with you versus if you have almost the entire property paid off.
Yeah.
They don't need to sell it for the value. They just want to get their money back. But if you own 80% of it, you have some negotiating power to say, listen, you're going to work with me on this thing or else you're going to walk.
Yeah. There's what is the saying, owning the bank. There's a point where the bank owns you, and then there's a point to where you own the bank.
Exactly right.
And so people say, well, what if they call your loans if there's another crash? Like, they're not calling my loans. There's going to be too many of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like, and that's what, I want people to have their properties paid off, and especially their homes paid off, but we do it very differently, right? And this is what I try to communicate to people all the time. If you have $100,000 loan and you have $100,000 of capital earning somewhere else, your property is paid off.
Yeah.
You could write a check tomorrow and pay that loan off. Yep. There is a huge difference between having debt and being in debt, people. Yep. Right? Great. And the reality is that the institutions, if you have almost your entire equity paid off, they're not going to negotiate with you because they don't need to sell it for market value. They just need to get what they have into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, and who's in control of your money, right? I want you to be, Jeff, and those are the conversations that we've had. Yeah. I want the people that I work with to be in control of their money. And people think that you control your equity.
No,
you don't. And the proof
is that's why I like to
spend it. If you control it, go spend it. See how it works out for you.
Yeah. Well, and I honestly like to keep my investment properties at 75-80% loan to value at all times. It leaves me enough spread in there to where if there's some crazy dip, I'm not underwater. But at the same time, I want my money. I can do much better things with my money than the bank can. Now, once we get
like buy a race car,
buy a race car. Yeah. Hell yeah. Wait till you go for a ride in that. We got to go to breakfast Wednesday morning so I can take you you and Maria for a little ride. But
I'm sorry I threw you off on that one, but yeah, I had to give that shot.
I know you did. I know. I paid cash for it though. I didn't get a loan. I have no loans on my vehicles, my truck and my GTR. I paid cash. So that's a step in the right direction. But I want to now if interest rates get above 6, then I'm going to start paying stuff down because I don't want that. That to me is good debt and is bad debt. Being in debt or having debt is anything under 6 in my opinion. I'm at 4s. So it's really hard for me to leave equity when there's 4% interest rates out there, man. I mean, that's why,
Well, but Jeff too, though, if you're positioned appropriately, right, you can again, if you have the debt versus in the debt, you can make decisions to write those loans off.
Yeah.
And you're doing things. So, being in our mastermind group together in our leadership room, what do you think the last couple of years for you has been the biggest thing as an entrepreneur, business owner? What are some of the biggest things that you've done or changed or learned in the last couple of years that you could share with anybody that would provide value or wisdom?
Well, it's a couple of things. It's a lot of what we just talked about, man. It's been a mindset shift for me, right? Although I learned to build wealth after 2008 and I went crazy doing it, buying 110 properties right out of the gate because that's the market we were in, was a buy and hold market. I just went nuts doing it. It was great. It's smart. But if you still have your mentality on money, what does money mean to you? And has to change, because I might have had wealth, I might have had residual income, but I could spend that stuff just as fast, as it came in and more, and still collect and still build that up. Even when I, with the justification that I'm making good money and I have this passive income, and that can get you in trouble just as fast. So it's just, understanding the value of the dollar, how it works, how to leverage debt, how to get, the value of not having a lot of debt or smart debt, if that makes sense. Like what you just said, having debt on the right things, it's a mindset. It's really hard to articulate. You're way better at articulating that than I am. The other thing would be, you only live once, and spending your whole life pushing and working your ass off to get to a point to where you can do the things you love is bullshit. right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason you can't be doing the things you love right now and still building wealth and moving toward whatever your goal is. And you know this too, John. It's like I want to be a great father. I want to be a great husband or boyfriend or wife. I want to go to all the games, all the practices. I want to boat every weekend. I want to take Fridays off. I want to go to the gym every morning. Man, once I get this certain dollar amount saved up, I'm going to start doing all that stuff, and it's going to be great. We never do.
Right.
It doesn't work like that. And so that's one of the things leadership boardrooms taught me, is how to look at that, just time management, what's really important, start living your vision now and how you want your life to be. In this weird, in your mindset will shift, and you'll find ways to hit those goals still. And you'll be like, holy shit, why wasn't I doing this all along?
Well, and for our listeners out there, I had the privilege to fly to St. Louis and just spend time with Jeff and a couple other people where we spent the entire day. Excuse me, I got this cold, right? Just hammering that out, right? And just being open and authentic with really what is your vision and what do you want it to look like, and why do we put this to what you said, Jeff? Oh, when I get there, then I'll experience life.
Yeah.
And that's been a challenge of mine too, right? Like, I've been very blessed and have a great financial practice and be able to do really anything that I want to do, but yet it was at the sacrifice of my family.
Yeah.
And why? For what? And so I get to go back and having people like you in my life to say, John, that's bullshit, right? Like, it's time for you to like just deal with the here and now and live your true vision, because you have the opportunity, because we all have the opportunity to live our vision.
Yeah.
Right. We're at choice. Right. And so I know that the work that you've put in the last couple of years, man, and where you're at and the things that you're doing, I mean, you're killing it. So, I think it's really important for, people to hear that and know that. And because gosh, go and buy 110 rental properties and do the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. And you keep referencing the last couple of years. I'll just give a little clarity on that. Is, 11 through 15, I bought all those rental properties, and then I grew the flip side of the business, and I decided I was going to do basically 5 times the revenue, and I was going to be the number one real estate wholesaler flipper in Missouri. And so I basically ran my overhead and my costs through the roof. I was at times touched 50 grand a month in marketing, and got myself into a hole of about 300 or 400 grand, because I got going so fast that we started making mistakes all over the place. Mm-hmm. And, hired a contractor that took me for 160 grand, outsourced all those rental properties I had because we were too bogged down in the office to manage that many rentals at once. So I outsourced them to a company that couldn't handle it. That cost me 6 figures. Then I had to, on an emergency basis, pull all those back in. And I just got myself to a point to where I was like, why am I doing all of this? And then so over the last couple of years, I've been cleaning up my business, downsizing to an appropriate place, finding out where I can live my vision and still make the money I want. And I'm doing 4 or 5 deals a month now versus 10 to 15. And I'm making more money, and I have all my time. So that's the work I've done over the last 2 years that we keep referencing. And so it's like, makes you look and go, like, I burned the candle at both ends, man, to the point of, near, losing everything, people step, whatever. I, got a lot of help. Leadership boardroom was a big part of that too, because everyone already had the mindset I needed, and they'd already been through what I'd been through to some level, whether personal life, spiritual life, or financial life. And so I do half the deals. I make more money while I'm building wealth at the same time. And I probably legitimately put in 20 hours a week.
And that's why you can never keep your calendar set, because you're too busy flying all over the place.
I know, man. I know, dude. It's true.
No one knows what the hell I'm talking about, but that's a shot at you.
I
And
know. John's he's a little butthurt that I've canceled a dinner date we have.
It's okay. I mean, listen, if anybody ever wants to schedule a call with Jeff, make sure you consistently follow up weeks in and weeks out. And by the time you go there, you'll find out that he had the wrong date. It's all right.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I'm getting better on that. That's what I'm working on next is my schedule. That's the next thing I got to work on.
Well, that's awesome.
So yeah, I apologize for that, man.
Oh, dude, that's all right. This is gonna be your broadcast. That's all right. You're apologizing to everybody, right? I love it.
Yeah, sorry everybody. I was really supposed to do this podcast last week, but I forgot. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's not true.
Yeah.
Well, man, I really appreciate you being on and just, hey, Jeff, if there's one or two things that you could share, with your experience, your life lessons, what would be like, this is kind of like the cliche question, but just, from an entrepreneur mindset or just a business owner mindset, what would be like one or two things that you could share with people that has been like really that what you've learned to really put you where you're at today?
That sounds like such a simple question, but it is not. There are so many there's the journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and I say that in reference to your question. And that's probably one of my answers is you will get where you want to go if that's where you want to be. Okay. And put it down on paper, plan it out and put it aside and start doing it. And, stay tunnel visioned for at least a year at a time, stay tunnel vision, go deep, not wide. Deep meaning if you're in real estate and you want to do flips, stay there, go deep, get good at it, get the best pricing in contractors, find the best wholesalers, tweak your marketing, go deep. Don't get into flips and rentals and rent-owns and be a wholesaler. Go deep, at least a year at a time. It is a marathon, not a sprint. You hear stories about guys in 3 or 4 years made themselves multimillionaires. Yeah, it happens, but a lot of those guys check with them 5 years later and they found a way to lose it all and build it back up again. Mm-hmm. So it's over. It's about time, and you will get it done. I've been millionaire and broke a couple times. Now I'm here to stay, and I got a ways to go on where the final goal is, but I'm here to stay. And I'm not chasing the shiny objects anymore. That'd be another one. Every new idea, John could come up, hey man, I'm doing this. And I could be like, yeah, I could do that too. It won't hurt anything I'm already doing. And next thing you know, I'm in Florida putting all my money in pre-construction condos, which I've never done either of. Instead of just going, no, I'm going to stay right in my lane and just keep going deep right here, right where I know. So
yeah, really pick that lane and own it, right? And be the best at it. And until you are the master at it, then you can start to go outside. I think, in my opinion, and what I'm hearing from you is that, once you pick that lane and own it, then you can maybe start to branch out. But it is because the new shiny object oftentimes distracts and creates problems, right? So
it distracts and it takes your focus away from what's right in front of you. And if you have that goal and you're working towards something, opportunities are going to come your way naturally just because you're putting that energy out there toward that. And when you get distracted with other things, you miss opportunities that come right in front of your face. You never knew they were there. But if you stay focused in one lane, you'll catch every opportunity that comes your way and you'll get gifts. You'll get gifts of deals if you're doing deals. You'll get, good things happen.
Well, man, I really appreciate you being on, and it's always good to see you. In fact, maybe when this gets posted, it will be past, but I'm going to see you in 2 days. So
yeah. Are we going to breakfast Thursday morning?
No, we're not having breakfast Thursday morning.
Why not?
Because that's early, dude.
Okay, man. All right. See, John likes to sleep in. He sleeps till like 10 or 11 every day, guys. Don't listen to this. I get up. I'm working.
Listen to you.
Doesn't happen.
You can't keep a dinner date. I don't want to get up early.
Look, I wanted to have breakfast at like 8. That's too early.
Yeah, okay. Our study group starts at 8. So I don't know what. See,
we can be late. Hey, I've got 9:30 on my calendar. Just go with me on that and we'll be on time.
Oh, man. Jeff Garner, everybody.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you being on, and it's always good to see you.
Yep, you too, buddy.
All right, thanks.
Talk to you soon.